Good morning. It's 8:30, and we're going to call the meeting to order. Appreciate everyone being here on short notice, and we would like to take the roll. Rich, if you could please take the roll for us.
Sure. Chairman Representative Kelly present, Vice Chairman Representative Hoheisel present, Ranking Minority Member Representative Shue is present, Representative Anderson is present, Representative Baker, not seen yet, but I'll continue to watch. Representative Bergkamp is present, Representative Day is present, Representative Donahoe is present, Representative Finney, Representative Kessler is present, Representative Lynn is present, Representative Neely is present remote, Representative Poskin is present, Representative Samsel is present remote, Representative Topliker, Representative Wassinger is present, Representative Weigel is present.
Thank you, Rich. Our first item of business is going to be a hearing on House Bill 2429. To start us out, David, could you give us a rundown of House Bill 2429?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. House Bill 2429 establishes the City Utility Low Interest Loan Program. The program will be administered by the State Treasurer. The purpose of the program is to provide loans to cities for extraordinary electric or natural gas costs incurred during the extreme winter weather event of February 2021. The total aggregate amount of loans on the program shall not exceed $100 million. The State Treasurer is required to adopt rules and regulations to administer the program not later than January 1, 2022, except that the State Treasurer shall establish a streamlined application for such loans within 14 days of the effective date of the bill. The State Treasurer shall approve loans under the program in the most expeditious manner possible on or after the effective date of the bill. The Treasurer is required to submit an annual report to the Governor and to the Legislature, identifying the cities participating in the program, the aggregate amount of monies loaned, and the amount of money still available for loan, if any. The first such report shall be due on or before January 1 of 2022, and the Legislature shall review the program on or after January 1, 2024. If this sounds kind of familiar, this is sort of like Senate Bill 15, if you might remember from a few weeks ago, and the same general structure, except this is money being loaned from the State Treasury directly to the cities, not to financial institutions that turn around and loan to businesses. So, but it's kind of similar to Senate Bill 15. Under the program, cities apply to the State Treasurer for a loan of state unencumbered funds for the purposes of paying those electric or natural gas costs incurred during the February 2021 winter weather event. As part of the application, the city's governing body shall certify the amount of such costs and indicate the specific fund or account of the city in which the State Treasurer shall order the Director of Investments to deposit the loan proceeds. As part of the application, the city governing body shall also be required to make a certification that if the city receives any federal monies related to the winter weather events from February, first priority of expenditure of such federal monies is to be for the payment of loans made under the program. Loans shall be only for those extraordinary utility costs and not for just other utility costs that had previously been budgeted for. So it's only those ones you can directly tie to the February winter event. Upon acceptance of that application, the State Treasurer shall certify to the Director of Investments the amount required for the loan, and the Director of Investments shall place a deposit of such certified amount in the specific fund or account as indicated by the city. If monies are not available to make all loans, applications may be considered in order received until monies again become available. The interest rate on the loan shall be 2% less than the market rate calculated under statute, with a minimum rate of 0.25% if the market rate is below 2.25%. No loan shall be amortized for a period of more than 10 years. Payments should not be required to be made more frequently than annually, but may be made more frequently if there's agreement between the city and the State Treasurer to sort of accelerate payment. All monies that are received from the State Treasurer by the State Treasurer from cities for payment on the loans made to the program would be deposited in the State Treasury to the credit of the pooled money investment portfolio. And then under this, loans under the program should not be considered bonded indebtedness of the city or subject to any other indebtedness cap in statute. And the bill does become effective upon publication in the register. So it can, as soon as it's published in the register, it would become effective. That, Mr. Chairman, I could stand for questions.
Questions for David? Don't see any. Thank you, David. Ask our research. Melissa, do you have any comments, Melissa or Heather, on this particular bill?
Mr. Chairman, I might note that you do have a fiscal note available from the Division of the Budget. There is comment from the Office of the State Treasurer regarding implementation costs, both for fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022, in part to hire a part-time new FTE position for the program and possibly a need to hire outside legal counsel to assist with the expedited rules and regulations required under the bill. There is language regarding the authorization for the PMIBs, the authorization up to the use of $100 million of idle funds. Language that was used in Senate Bill 15 is again repeated here regarding some of the balances and challenges the PMIB has had in the most recent 6 months. There's also a statement from the League of Kansas Municipalities regarding cities that would be participating, but there's not a way to, at this point, determine the precise amount of the loans that would be requested by cities to meet those needs of cities, as they have not all yet received bills covering the timeline of this extreme winter weather event of February of 2021.
Thank you, Melissa. Any questions for Melissa? Thank you. Oh, Representative Burkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this might be for David. I forgot to ask, who's going to define extraordinary? Or where's that going to come from?
Mr. Chairman, the city will have to certify that amount as extraordinary. It would be those things not budgeted for. Like if they had budgeted, say, $100,000 for natural gas this month, and it came in at $2 million, it would be the amounts above the 100,000. That would have to be the city, and then the state treasurer would have to then approve that certified amount before making the loan.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, Melissa and David. And this will officially open the hearing on House Bill 2429, and we'll start with the proponents. And the first proponent I have listed is Representative Blaine Fitch, Speaker Pro Tem, District 59, Ottawa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It is my honor to stand before you this morning and ask you for swift passage of House Bill 2429 out of committee. This bill does create a $100 million low-interest loan program through the state's idle funds to assist cities with extraordinary expenses related to the February cold snap this year. We all remember that it got cold last month, and not only did it get cold here, but it got cold south of here. Natural gas well freeze-offs and pipeline disruptions led to huge disruptions in the supply chain for natural gas. That coincided with a spiking in demand across the Midwest and Upper Plains states that left prices skyrocketing for natural gas and electricity. First it doubled, then it went up 10 times, then 100 times, and in some cases more than that. We're now seeing the first wave of bills come into cities across this state who have and operate gas utilities or electric utilities, who were faced with an incredible conundrum. Do we not supply natural gas and heat in the middle of one of the coldest snaps that we've had in decades in this state, or do we have to pay the king's ransom for natural gas and electricity at these exorbitant prices? They did what any of us would do. They took care of the people that they serve, and they kept the lights on, they kept the heat going, and they took care of people. But these bills threaten to leave these cities with no option, in some cases other than bankruptcy. You've seen the article about the little town of Denison. Normally they spend $125,000 on natural gas in a year. Their bill for those days in February was $241,000. almost double what their annual spend on natural gas is to supply utilities to their constituents. So this bill is an attempt to do something about that. It is not a handout, it is not a giveaway, it is not a bailout. It is a loan program that allows for these municipalities to borrow money at low interest rates from the state, which then has to be paid back over time. But through the use of that time, we can help avoid further rate hikes for Kansas consumers that live in these cities. We can avoid spikes in property taxes in these communities because they won't be under a time pressure to pay all of this back within the next few weeks or the next year or 3 years. You might ask why we're doing it this way. Why don't we do it through no fund warrants or some other mechanism? No fund warrants would require financial institutions to underwrite the debt. After the Great Depression, Kansas enacted the cash basis law. We said that cities cannot go into debt without certain permissions. The ways they do that usually is through bonded indebtedness. Issuing bonds costs a lot of money. There's a lot of paperwork that has to be done. You have to have an underwriter come in and you have to make a public offering of those bonds. So cities are in a unique position, even versus investor-owned utilities or electric co-ops. Cities have the least flexibility in terms of trying to amortize this debt out over a longer period of time. This bill, House Bill 2429, is the solution to that problem. It will give these cities a fighting chance to help not have to pass on these costs to their consumers in a rapid or shocking way. We didn't realize when we added rural development to this committee how prescient that would be. But one of the things that we are all concerned about in Kansas, no matter where you're from, Johnson County, Sedgwick County, or the rest of the state, we are concerned about rural Kansas. And we all would like to see more people choose the Kansas way of life and to live in rural Kansas and to keep our communities strong. And my fear is if we don't do something like 2429 very quickly in this matter, we're going to see small towns like Denison have to choose to fold up and disincorporate rather than be able to continue. And if not, we will at the very least see huge increases in utility prices, huge increases in property taxes, and we will push people out of rural Kansas instead of inducing them to move here and make their lives here. So I ask you today to support this bill, to move as swiftly as you can to get it to the House floor. We'll take it from there. For the sake of rural Kansas, for our communities, for our businesses and our families, I think this is much needed relief, and it can be delivered timely with your help. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll stand for questions now or at the appropriate time.
Any questions for Representative Finch? Representative Hoheisel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, for bringing this bill to us. This is very important. I agree with you, especially for our friends in rural Kansas. I do have one question about the $100 million. Do we foresee ourselves using the entire $100 million? And is $100 million going to be enough?
I will, I know that we've got Kimberly Swati, who's going to testify to you from KMU here in a little bit, and she can kind of talk to you about that. That number is purposeful. It is intentional. It comes from what we believe are the costs for natural gas and electricity for those KMU member cities for the gas and electricity that they have had to provide. So we believe that's a fairly good estimate. That's not to say that there won't be cost above and beyond that at some point. But we wanted to try to tailor the program as much as possible to address what we knew the liabilities were at this point.
Thank you for that, Mr. Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for Representative Finch? Have one, Representative Samsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, for being here this morning. This definitely strikes me as an emergency. I appreciate the legislation. I do have a couple questions. And this is a little bit off topic, but when I hear that the prices have doubled or 10 times, or in some cases 100 times or more increased, it seems, I hope, part of the conversation, and maybe it's not today, but hopefully in the near future, at what point does rising prices start to turn into price gouging, and will there be investigations or looking into that so that perhaps we can be more proactive, and not just the government or the cities or the energy providers, but all of us in the future?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if I may respond. Yes, Representative Samsel, we know that the Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt is looking into some allegations of price gouging, and particularly in the Denison example that I mentioned. We also know that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, is also looking into price gouging. that may have occurred. So the good news about this bill is whatever those federal investigations may turn up, and I believe that the ultimate solution to how we strengthen the grid is probably not something this committee or even a state can handle. That's going to be a federal solution if and when it comes. But what is required under this bill is if federal monies are received to help ameliorate these costs, they do have to go first to loan repayment. So we would restock this loan fund first with those federal dollars. It couldn't be used for something else. So hopefully, if there is price gouging, they'll find it. If there is federal aid, we'll be able to use it to replenish this fund.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Mr. Chair, my second question, if I may, is and I have a city in my district who will benefit greatly from this, and I do think it's greatly needed. My question, though, actually gets to the rate because I have other cities who are not going to benefit from this. And I think I understand that there's going to be a 2% or a 2-point discount, if you will. As I explained to the folks, my taxpayers who are not directly benefiting from this, could you, how should I explain to them that they should be getting the 2-point discount as opposed to maybe just what the market rate might be as we offer these loans?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The policy decision here, Representative Samsel, is that these are essentially government-to-government loans. These are not loans that are being offered to investor-owned utilities in our state. They're not loans that are being offered to cooperatives. And earlier in my testimony, I mentioned that cities are in a uniquely tough position here because of the lack of ability to go engage in financial transactions that they can incur debt to spread out the cost of this extraordinary event. There are, and if you followed this story a little bit, you know that most of the investor-owned utilities in this state, whether electric or the natural gas providers, they have already taken out large loans to help spread this out to try to keep rates down for their consumers. And I suspect that we'll see on the Senate side, there's a bill about securitization, and I think you'll see a move in that bill to try to address some of the pain felt by consumers for investor-owned utilities. And I think we'll still be working on the cooperative question and how we solve that. So when you have constituents who say, why not me? Why are you just doing this? This is a specific solution that's narrowly tailored to deal with the issues that are unique to municipalities. But there are other programs that we're looking at, both in House and Senate, to help address those issues raised by customers of investor-owned utilities and customers of co-ops.
As always, outstanding work, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time and questions.
Thank you. Any other questions for Representative Finch? Thank you, Representative Finch, for being here and testifying on this extremely important bill, and appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you and the committee.
The second proponent I have listed is Kimberly Swati of the, on behalf of the Kansas Municipal Utilities.
There we go. Okay. Can you hear me better now? Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I made the egregious mistake of actually putting on lipstick this morning, and so now I'm so fearful to look up because I don't want to look like a clown. But I appreciate very much the opportunity to be here before you all this morning testifying in support of House Bill 2429. My name is Kimberly Swati, and I am proudly here before you today representing Kansas Municipal Utilities and our joint action agencies that fall within that organization: Kansas Municipal Gas Agency, Kansas Power Pool, Kansas Municipal Energy Agency. There isn't anything that I could say that would be better than what Representative Finch said, so I won't necessarily go down that path, but I will gladly answer any questions. And I do just want to put a finer point on some of the words and items that you'll see in your testimony. So KMU, we are the trade association, the statewide trade association for all community-owned electric, natural gas, water, and wastewater utilities operating in the state. We've been in business, if you will, since 1928, headquartered in McPherson, Kansas. We have cities across the state own their own water and wastewater utility. We have 118 communities across the state that own their own natural gas utility, or that own their own electric utility, forgive me, and about 53 communities across the state own their own natural gas utility. It has been that way for decades. And the service is fantastic. The reliability is great, top notch. And our rates are really the lowest in the state for a variety of reasons. Our employees live within those communities. On the electric side, many of our cities actually have generating units themselves, and we are incredibly proud of those generating units, and even more so this week after we did experience the situation that we went through with a prolonged cold snap. And we did not experience what Texas experienced. And in large part, it's because our community-owned utilities fired up their generating units and they were generating their hearts out. So whether it was on diesel fuel or heating oil, they were literally providing that stabilization to the grid. And so we are very appreciative of all that they did. And the preparedness of the municipal utilities, really allowed us to weather the unbelievable cold snap that we experienced in a way to where we did not see what happened in Texas, and we're very thankful for that. Unfortunately, we are not shielded from what happened in the natural gas market, which bled over into the electric market. And so just for perspective, the cold snap, I received a phone call at 3 p.m. on Friday, February 12th, and alerting us to what was becoming a bit of a crisis situation. And what we had found is on Monday, natural gas was trading at around $3 an MMBTU. And by Wednesday, that went up to about $6 to $7 an MMBTU. So prices already doubling. By Friday or by Thursday, gas was trading at $45 an MMBTU. That is a significant jump. The highest point that we had ever seen in decades was $34, and that was in 2014 during the polar vortex, which was a one-day event, and really we were the furthest south in that polar vortex event. So in this particular situation, on Friday morning, when we went to secure some additional gas on the market because customers' demand was really going through the roof because it was getting so cold. And so we use a 1/3 fixed long-term buying strategy, a 1/3 fixed monthly contract strategy. We optimize our natural gas storage, but there are physical limitations to how much natural gas we can inject in storage, both how much the pipe can actually handle, but then there's also regulatory restrictions on how much we can inject in off-peak and how much we can withdraw during crisis times. So when we went to procure some additional gas on Friday morning, we nominated our needs. And it's interesting, and this could potentially be one of the market reforms that comes out of this situation, but when you go in and you nominate, that's around 7 o'clock in the morning or before 7 a.m. in the morning. Well, the natural gas market doesn't close trading until 5 p.m. So 10 hours goes by. And in that 10-hour time period, the market went nuts. And we were getting reports in from what was happening down in Texas and in Oklahoma with the natural gas wellhead freeze-offs. And so production literally came to a halt. I would encourage you to read some testimony from Garden City. Garden City has the Jameson Energy Facility. It's a 27 megawatt unit. It's a natural gas fired. They could not run the unit because they couldn't get gas supply. And ironically, even then, had they been able to run the unit, the cost of the natural gas certainly would have far exceeded anything that they had budgeted for. So the natural gas supply didn't exist. And at the same time, you had a huge peak need occurring all the way up to the Canadian border and then down into Texas for more natural gas, more energy, because it was so cold for so long and so widespread. And so you actually had the electric utilities coming into the natural gas market, which typically doesn't happen this time of year. And they were trying to procure natural gas to power their generating units as well in order to keep the system up and going. And that just further exacerbated the problem in the market. And so by the time we received a phone call at 3 o'clock on Friday, natural gas, which had been trading at $3 an MMBTU on Monday, by Friday at 5 was trading between $210 and $375. And oh my goodness, do I wish that that was the top dollar that we ultimately ended up seeing, and in fact, it was not. It was a holiday weekend, and so we had our 31 natural gas utilities had natural gas supply through Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but all weekend we remained very concerned about, one, we have to keep the natural gas flowing to these customers, to these communities. So that's priority number one, 1A. 1B is what happens when they make a collateral call? What happens when we go to market on Tuesday morning to buy a little bit more for Wednesday and Wednesday for Thursday? Are they going to require prepaid sales? And so we immediately began working with the governor's office, with our federal delegation, with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to make sure that natural gas could continue to flow, even though the prices were extraordinary. And we knew that, as Blaine explained, you either don't pay it and you don't supply the natural gas, or you pay it. And so that's what we had to do. And that was a decision not just that we made, all utilities made that decision, whether or not you were a municipal utility or an electric co-op or an investor-owned utility. And so, unfortunately, when trading began on Tuesday morning, we did see our peak natural gas bill closed at $622 an MMBTU for our community in Winfield. We did have some others in the $400 range. And then fortunately, then it bled into the electric market, and we saw huge spikes on the electric side. And I can absolutely go through all of that, but I know time is an issue. This is like a PhD dissertation experience. But what I think is really important to Representative Hoheisel's question about price gouging, by the end of the week, prices were back down by Friday. That cold snap was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. By Friday, prices were back down in the $4 range. That following Monday, we were seeing prices back down in the $2.50 range, $2.50 range. So there are investigations going on related to price gouging and what happened in this very deregulated natural gas market. And those investigations are all good. But at the end of the day, we still have bills to pay. And I would like to draw your attention to some of the testimony that was provided. So the city of Winfield, for example, they put together a spreadsheet for what their February billing would be typically around, for their industrial customers, around $13,794. Based on, this is on the natural gas side, due to the price spike, $189,000. Your residential customer typically would be around $133. With the price spike, we're around $1,731. Small businesses, typically around $248, projected to be over $4,000. So not only, and there, we can certainly go further, the city of Lyons, it has a population of 3,700 individuals. 16.9% of the city is at poverty level or below. 2.9% of the population in Lyons is unemployed. Their average normal gas bill for the city for the entire month is $75,000. For that 6-day price spike period, it's $3.3 million. So this is a 4,400% increase. If you look through your packet, you'll see all sorts of testimony to that end. House Bill 2429 is not a bailout, as Representative Finch said. It is simply a backstop. We have bills that are coming due, and we don't have the capability to issue debt. We have to pay the bills. And at this point, in the testimony, you'll see words like crippling, duress, insolvency, bankruptcy. Please help. Please do something. We need help. And so that is what House Bill 2429 would do. It would allow us the opportunity to borrow from the state to help pay these bills. So then we, the cities, can go through and smooth out those cost increases to our customers. So we are not all of a sudden providing them with a $4,000 bill next month, which very few people can afford. So that is really the thrust of 2429. We would encourage your support. There are certainly provisions in there that make sure that any loans we would be seeking out are just for the extraordinary provisions associated with this natural gas spike and electricity cost spike. This doesn't have anything to do with general operating expenses. It doesn't even have anything to do with the costs that we were already expected to spend in a typical February. This deals specifically with the atypical extraordinary costs associated with this event. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. One other question we did have was whether or not the 100 million is enough. We feel that that's a very close approximation. It may be off a little bit, but because bills are still coming in, but we feel like that $100 million will really address the absolute crux of the issue, which is becoming extremely time sensitive and literally a matter of days to pay these bills. And if we aren't able to pay the bills, then we really do have to make the decision as to whether, well, actually, we don't make the decision. The decision will be made for us as to whether or not natural gas will continue to be supplied for us and whether or not our cities will continue to participate in the electric market, which means if they can't participate, then how do we provide electricity to those communities? So we absolutely appreciate the opportunity to provide comments this morning. We appreciate the expedited manner in which you're considering this. We appreciate just the profound nature of this situation and your willingness to help. Been in this building for almost 20 years, and there's always things that are being done, to help communities, to help businesses, to help Kansans. And it's usually kind of further on down the road. This is something you can do right here, right now, that will literally make the difference in the lives of people in the next week to 10 days. And for some people, like in the town of Cheney, where they have 40% of the individuals in their community are renters, what does the community do when the gas bill comes due and a good portion of those renters they leave because they can't pay the natural gas bill? So this situation helps the cities, and it really helps our businesses and our consumers, and I'm happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. And questions, Representative Hoheisel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Kimberly, for being here today. I know you're very passionate about this issue, and it definitely tells. And I think this is great legislation, and this is what we're up here to do. I just have a couple quick questions. How many cities will benefit from this? Do you have that number?
So that's a great question. We have 118 municipal electric utilities in the state, about 53 municipal gas entities. Not all of them. This situation, we call it it was like our EF5, but you can't see the physical damage. So it's disproportionate. On the gas side, it pretty much hit everyone. So we envision most of the 53 communities, if not all of the 53 communities, needing some assistance. What that will be, we're still working on that. On the electric side, it was more disproportionate. And so it may be that 40 communities need help or 50 communities out of the 118. But to be sure, since 3 p.m. 2 weeks ago on Friday, February 12th, this has been everything we've lived and breathed. So we will be able to work very closely with those communities to try and get them the assistance they need.
Okay. And is there, in this simple yes or no, I guess, kind of, is there any federal legislation on the horizon?
There are at least three federal opportunities. One, there is an existing USDA fund that allows for monies to be used for high energy costs. That does not have funding in it right now. And so we have asked the federal delegation, and it's not just in Kansas, it's across this whole region, fund that. So that's one option. Representative Tom Cole from Oklahoma and his counterpart in Arkansas introduced a bill, the RULE Act, and it would create some federal funding specifically for extraordinary costs. So that is a possibility. We've also talked about a federal infusion to the low-income heating and energy assistance program. And then, of course, there is the outstanding stimulus package, which we're not necessarily holding our breath that would have funding in it for this, but because that's tied to COVID relief. However, if we could get flexibility in how that funding could be utilized, it could help offset some of those costs. Those are more longer, all of those are more long-term. We have an immediate financial crisis right now, literally right now. And so that's why we're pushing this particular piece of legislation. And then any funding that did come from the federal government would go to immediately pay back those loans.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just one last quick question. Is there a cash call on Tuesday? Is that the day?
So on the electric side, we are just wrapping up a cash call, if you will, the bill for the first tranche of the days of the energy crisis. And many of the cities were able to cobble together enough funding to meet that round. We have another bill that will be sent to us on Friday and will be due by close of business on Tuesday. That's the real problem.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Shu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kimberly, for being here. I think everybody in this room and in this building indeed feels the gravity of what we're doing here. I think this is a very good and necessary piece of legislation. I think I share the concerns of many about the extraordinary price increase in a short amount of time. Maybe it's price gouging, I don't know. I don't sit on the Energy Committee. Can you help me walk through? So the city contracts with the municipal utility provider or the utility company, right? There's a contract there, they got to pay it.
So,
And then I assume the utility company contracts with a supplier. I'm trying to figure out who benefits from the price increase.
no, it's a great question, and it is a question that there are lots of people looking at right now and attorneys looking at. So in our case, and this is not the case with the investor-owned utilities, but in our case, the cities, for example, with Kansas Municipal Gas Agency, they're a pooled entity, and Kansas Municipal Gas Agency represents all of these different cities in the market and secures them natural gas supply. And a lot of times it's more so financially advantageous to be part of a power pool, if you will, and procuring that natural gas because, you know, more is being bought rather than an individual entity just going out on the market. So in the case of these 31 municipal gas entities, the cities are a member of KMGA, and KMGA goes to the market and they issue RFPs for long-term fixed contracts or fixed monthly contracts, and then also on the storage side. And then they do go to the market and seek the final amount of the daily need. They are not trading. I don't want anyone to have the impression that we do anything related to trading in the natural gas market. That does not happen. We have one person and she procures power, or she procures natural gas for these communities. So then we buy through, we work with the pipelines, and the pipelines then go upstream and work with the producers. So there have been articles that have come out as some of the natural gas producers have posted their earnings in the last 10 days, and that is where the money is being made. It's not from the pipelines. They're just literally transporting. It's not from us because, we're not for profit. We don't have a profit motive. It's on the production side.
Okay, Representative Shu, one more question. We really got to move things along. We're running up against our time limit.
Sure, just a quick comment. Yeah, this is a good bill, but no matter what, it's going to come back down to the ratepayer paying it over 10 years. I would imagine if I look into the profit margins of those producers, I'm sure they're doing okay, but that's more of a long-term fix and not what we're doing today. Thank you.
Representative Samsel, quick question.
In the interest of time, I'll save mine for later, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And Kimberly, thank you for being here. Representative
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Kimberly, for doing such an outstanding job of communicating the urgency of the situation and the dire straits that our cities and municipalities face if this doesn't pass. I would also, you mentioned the unemployment in Lyons, and I have heard from thousands of Kansans over the last few weeks about their urgent and dire straits too. We need to make sure that this doesn't become the 10th event in a row to hurt them. And in some other committee and some other time, we need to address some other ways for them to pay their bills because they've been dealing with cash calls for 20 weeks, 30 weeks that they have not been able to come up with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kimberly. Appreciate it. Our next proponent, Amanda Stanley from the League of Kansas Municipalities.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly, and I will be very brief in the interest of time. I am here today in behalf of the League of Kansas Municipalities because this is so much more than an energy issue. This is a city issue. For over 100 communities in Kansas, they are worried about their very survival. I would urge you to read their testimony that comes not just from elected officials who are worried about their neighbors, but from their businesses, from their churches, begging you for help. In my time working in local government, I have never heard such desperation from people begging for a solution from someone, and you can give them that today. Representative Finch has worked tirelessly on this. He absolutely explained cash basis law. Cities are unique. We can't carry debt. If you don't help them, no one will. And I think the city clerk from Argonia summarized the urgency and the need best when she wrote, "Our community of only 500 residents has been shook over the natural gas pricing during this hard spell. We are asking for our voices to be heard. This impact of change in price has set an alarming shudder through our office, through our governing body, through our community members and our businesses. This cost could break us. We have worked so hard to keep our small rural community afloat over the past several years. We need your help. We need you to hear us. We need you to come together and help us find a solution." It is urgent that this get done today. I know you have Senate Bill 88. Normally, I would never recommend that you gut my own bill, but that is a league bill on street vacating. And we are in urgent times, and this needs to be done in the most expeditious manner possible. So I'm asking that you please consider putting the contents of this House bill into Senate Bill 88 so that it can not just get out of this committee and out of the House, but that it can get over to the Senate and hopefully make it to the governor's desk in time to save cities. This is not just about cities. This is about the people in them who need your help. Thank you, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Amanda? Don't see any. Thank you, Amanda. Next proponent listed is Eric Stafford, Vice President of Kansas Chamber. Is Eric here? Okay, we'll consider that written testimony. And then we have, last one would be Lynn Rogers, our state treasurer. Yeah. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I just want to let people know that the State Treasurer's Office stands ready to assist and help in any way we can. We know these are unprecedented times. Our staff's calendar is being cleared this afternoon so that we can do everything we can to help these cities. Again, just to remind people, this is unencumbered funds in the PMIB. Statute allows up to 10%. We have commitments currently for about 230. Most of that is not used, and so this would take us to the limit, but this is not excess cash. This is just idle cash. It would be invested at this 25 basis points, which is about twice what we're currently making on PMIB. And the rates would change on these loans every 10 years. Our staffing requirement in the office would not be what is needed up front. It really would be for the repayment, but we would need to look at outside counsel, which we can start getting organized right away. We would need to require the cities to pass a resolution and do some work on their end, but we currently have most of the information on how to send out the proceeds, because we send out tax revenues to cities and counties all the time. So I just want to let you know that we are in support, and we'll do whatever we can to make this a successful program and ready to go as soon as we can.
We have a question, Representative Burkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being here today, Secretary. Is there more than 100 million possible in the fund that we could use? My only concern is that the way it's written today, if funds are not available for a loan, it'd be in the order that they're received. So I just want to make sure we don't cut a community off or how we address that.
And that is, thank you. That is a tricky question. I would anticipate that we could probably prorate it to a certain degree so that some of the smaller ones don't get left out. We would probably need a trailer bill anyway for some of the repayment things down the road. Once the loans are put in place, you could reconsider putting more into it, or we would prorate it from that standpoint. So there are funds available because we're not using all the housing PMIB linked deposits, but again, statute-wise, we would only be able to go to 100 million on this because of the way the bill's written. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions for our state treasurer? If not, thank you very much for being here this morning. In committee, I call your attention, and it's going to be out on the website and available under the S drive for you, but in interest of time, I'll just say that we have written testimony from mayors, city administrators, city managers, city clerks, city treasurers, council members, general managers from 36 cities. We have written testimony from 4 other groups or organizations, and we have 15 testimonies from residents in these communities, written testimonies. So I urge you to go back and take a look at those, but from a whole real diversity of towns, including the one we've seen all in the news lately, Denison. So take a look at those, and
Mr. Chairman, we cannot hear the committee.
Mr. Chairman, this is Representative Samsel. I will echo that. We can't hear anything, unfortunately.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Looks like we're back on. Okay, now we'll open the opponent portion of the hearing. Does anyone wish to testify as an opponent? If not, we'll close the opponent portion of the hearing, and this will close the hearing on House Bill 2429. We'd now like to open the hearing on Senate Bill 88. And David, you have any comments on Senate Bill 88?
Mr. Chairman, I can go through the provisions of the bill if you'd like, but if that's not necessary, then no, I don't really have anything.
Okay, if anyone has any questions for David, you can follow up with him. Any comments from research? No comments from research, so this will officially open the hearing on Senate Bill 88, and we will move into that, and I think we'll open the proponent portion, and I believe we've already had the testimony from the, I think, the only proponent that we had listed. Anyone else wish to speak as a proponent for Senate Bill 88? If not, we'll close the proponent portion, open up the neutral portion. Anyone neutral on Senate Bill 88? Okay, if don't see anyone, we'll close the neutral and open up the opponent portion on Senate Bill 88. Anyone wish to testify as an opponent to Senate Bill 88? Do not see anyone. This will then close our hearing on Senate Bill 88. And with the urgency of this situation, we'd like to work this bill today, and do have a motion. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the current time crunch and the urgent need to get this relief passed as soon as possible, I move that the committee suspend the rules for consideration of emergency final action on Senate Bill 88.
Have a second by Representative Chu. And committee, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. We'll suspend the rules and we will take up Senate Bill 88. What is the will of the committee on Senate Bill 88? Representative Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the expediency required of the issue, I move to strike the contents of Senate Bill 88 and insert the contents of HB 2429.
Have a motion, have a second by Representative Hoheisel. Discussion? Not seeing any discussion. Representative Chu, you can close on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close on House substitute for SB 88.
Yeah, and we...
I close on the amendment.
You close on his amendment, and committee, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment is approved. We're back on the bill. Representative Hoheisel. Representative Chu.
I now close on House substitute for SB 88.
Representative Hoheisel, you second? Okay, we have to close on House Bill, House substitute for Senate Bill 88, and to look at moving it out favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and Senate Bill 88 is passed, and really appreciate everyone getting this effort together so quickly and on such an important matter. Committee, watch out, watch your for your email, but right now I don't believe we'll have a meeting on Wednesday, March the 10th, but stay tuned. But I think that will be, and we'll confirm that just as quickly as possible for you. So our meeting is adjourned, and thanks everyone for reacting so quickly today.